When Amanda Batula confirmed she was dating Wes Wilson in March 2026, Summer House fans did something unexpected. They bought drinks. Not to celebrate, not because the product got better, because Kyle Cooke, the man whose marriage had just collapsed publicly on national television, needed the money, and his fans knew it. The outpouring of support temporarily saved Loverboy from the edge of bankruptcy. Kyle said so himself. But fan sympathy has a shelf life, and the financial reality underneath Loverboy has not changed. Kyle Cooke is personally guaranteeing $2.9 million in debt. He has not taken a salary in over 9 months. He has put $500,000 of his own money into the company just to keep it running. And on camera, before the scandal broke, he said the words that every founder fears saying out loud. If I don't find a partner to buy Loverboy or take on our operations, we will go out of business by the end of this year. So the question is not whether the fan support felt good. It did. The question is whether it was enough and whether Loverboy can actually survive what comes next. To understand whether Loverboy can survive, you have to understand what kind of business it actually is and how hard that business is to run. Kyle founded Loverboy in 2018. The product was a zero-sugar sparkling hard tea targeting health-conscious drinkers. Clean ingredients, strong branding, and a founder with a built-in audience from Bravo. On paper, it was a legitimate concept in a fast-growing category. And for a while, it worked. Loverboy expanded into major retailers, grew its product line, and raised $7.6 million in total funding from investors, including Republic Capital and Riverside Ventures. But the hard beverage industry is a graveyard. The category that Loverboy competes in, hard seltzer, hard tea, canned cocktails, exploded during COVID, and then cratered almost as fast. White Claw, Truly, High Noon, massive brands with massive marketing budgets. Loverboy was competing against all of them with a fraction of the resources. Distribution is where most small beverage brands die. Getting onto shelves is expensive. Staying on shelves requires consistent sell-through. If your product sits and doesn't move, retailers pull it. And once distribution declines, revenue declines with it. Kyle said exactly this on camera. In the last 6 months before filming, Loverboy had seen a decline in distribution, which meant a decline in revenue. He had raised money, built a team, and expanded, and the market has shifted underneath him. Loverboy has raised $7.6 million in funding since its founding. Kyle personally took a $4 million small business loan to fund operations. He's 5 years into the 10-year loan. Of that $4 million, only $1.3 million has been paid down. That leaves $2.9 million outstanding, and Kyle personally guaranteeing every dollar of it. On top of the loan, Kyle stopped taking a salary for over 9 months by his own account. He had then put an additional $500,000 of personal money into the business to extend its cash reserves. He started DJing to generate personal income because Loverboy could no longer pay him. He also disclosed that he had been looking for a buyer or an operational partner, someone to either acquire the company outright or take on the distribution and operation side. As of the most recent reporting, no deal has been announced. And then there's the divorce. Kyle and Amanda do not have a prenup, and Amanda served as Loverboy's creative director for years. She designed the branding, the packaging, the visual identity that the company built its consumer recognition on. Under marital property law, that history creates potential claims. Amanda has said publicly she will not pursue ownership of the business. She told Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live, that's his baby, that's his bread and butter. She also added, and this is worth noting, do I regret not having a prenup? Yes, everyone needs a prenup. As of now, no divorce filing has been made, the financial settlement is unresolved, and a company that needs outside investment or acquisition is simultaneously navigating a divorce with no prenup and no finalized terms. That's not a simple situation for any potential buyer or partner trying to do due diligence. When Amanda and Wes confirmed their relationship, something happened that no one could have predicted. Summer House fans, people who had watched Kyle struggle on camera, who knew about the loan, who had seen him say he was on the financial brink, went directly to Loverboy's website and bought product. Sales surged, products sold out. The cash infusion that the business had been desperate for arrived not from a venture capital firm or strategic acquirer, but from an audience that felt something watching a man they had followed for years lose his marriage and fight for his company at the same time. Kyle acknowledged it directly and publicly. On the Trading Secrets podcast, he said, the support from our fan base saved Loverboy. He leaned into it, posted on Instagram telling fans their purchases were literally keeping the lights on. The company released branded merchandise tied to cast drama. It was transparent, audience aware, and it worked. His fan support generated cash flow, extending the runway for Kyle and Loverboy. It gave him more time. It did not pay down the $2.9 million loan. It did not replace the distribution that had been declining for months. It did not resolve the divorce. And it didn't produce a buyer or partner that Kyle and the company needed to survive long-term. Fan support bought Loverboy time. The question is what Kyle does with it. There are 3 scenarios for Loverboy from here. The first is acquisition. A larger beverage company or private equity firm with a beverage portfolio buys Loverboy outright. Kyle pays off the personal loan from the proceeds, potentially making some money, and the brand continues under new ownership. This is the cleanest outcome. It's also the hardest to execute. Acquirers do due diligence. The divorce and the unresolved financial settlement between Kyle and Amanda creates complications that any serious buyer will want resolved before closing. The second is an operational partner. Kyle finds a larger distributor or beverage operator to take over the supply chain and distribution side of the business. reducing the operational burden and cost while he retains ownership. This is more achievable than an outright sale, but still requires a partner willing to bet on the brand's long-term viability in a declining category. The third scenario is that neither happens. The fan support surge fades, as it inevitably will, revenue declines again as the cultural moment passes, and the $2.9 million loan comes due or Kyle can no longer service it, and Loverboy, despite everything, closes. Kyle himself named the scenario explicitly. He said on camera, "If I don't find a partner, we will go out of business." The hard seltzer and hard tea category has not recovered to its peak. The brands that have survived the shakeout are the ones with massive parent company backing. The fan support's real, the loyalty of the Summer House audience is real, but consumer loyalty built on emotional sympathy is different from consumer loyalty built on product preference. People who bought Loverboy to support Kyle in March are not necessarily going to become habitual monthly purchasers. The spike is not the same as a sustainable customer base. And the beverage industry does not run on spikes. It runs on consistent velocity. Units sold per store per week, sustained distribution, repeat purchase rates. None of those metrics are fixed by a sympathy-driven sales surge. Kyle has built something real. He bet everything on it. His money, his salary, his financial future. And when it was failing, the audience that had watched him build it showed up in the most tangible way they could. That matters, and it bought him time. But Loverboy's survival was never going to be decided by a sales surge. It was always going to be decided by whether the business could find sustainable distribution, reduce its debt burden, and secure the kind of operational or financial partnership that transformed a struggling brand into a viable long-term company. None of these problems have been solved. They've been deferred. The fan support was the best possible version of a temporary fix. Well, what comes next? The buyer search, the divorce settlement, the distribution rebuild is where Loverboy's story actually gets resolved. Kyle's personal guarantee means he does not have the luxury of waiting very long to find out how it ends.